the subject of today's program is on birdhouses, and as you can see, there's a lot of different things that are referred to as birdhouses. And I'd like to break them up into two categories, one being a traditional type birdhouse that a bird might actually live in, and other items that are, I consider them yard art. That,
huge argument about it.
You may or may not get a bird living in there.
I will let you know.
So this is a traditional birdhouse. It has, and I'm going to be going over the characteristics of what will make a good birdhouse. This is from Wild Birds Unlimited, the store down there in Snellville. And they donated this, didn't donate it, they let me borrow it to bring in for the show, for show and tell. This is another birdhouse that would be considered a traditional birdhouse. However, it has some features that I don't like about it. It's not really, doesn't make a real good birdhouse out of it. This one's sort of on the border between a traditional birdhouse and yard art. This is a gourd. Gourds are often used for purple martins. This one, however, is typically taken over by house wrens or Carolina wrens. Here's a piece that I would strictly call yard art. And I'll go a little bit deeper why I would strictly call it yard art. And then some things don't even make it out to the yard. This is one, and I didn't make any of these. I don't want to take credit for making any. This was a gift that was given to me, and I don't think any bird would ever want to live in that. And here's another one, that I would claim. There's this one, very possibly the person who made this may have thought they were making a real birdhouse, but I don't think you'd ever get a bird living in that.
Small one.
Yeah. And this one, same thing here. I don't know. Did that person really think they were making a birdhouse when they made that? But I certainly would never get a bird living in that. So, if your interest is in yard art, I'm not going to be talking about yard art. So you can just take a nap and I'll wake you up when you're ready. In the state of Georgia, there's 182 birds that are listed in the Georgia Breeding Bird Atlas of Georgia. There's 182 birds that are documented as breeding in the state of Georgia. And of those 182, there's only 22 birds that will nest in cavities. That's the kind of birds that will nest in a birdhouse. So you see a bird out in your yard. We'll take this guy, for example, here. This is an American goldfinch. They will make well, let me step back. There's four basic different nesting categories that birds have, the 182 species that we have. The first being a cup nester. The American goldfinch, I want to bring the camera over here and show you some stuff on the American goldfinch makes a traditional cup-type nest, and they would never nest in a birdhouse. So if you see something like a bird in your yard, building a birdhouse to try to attract that bird to your yard will not work. He's not going to go nest in a birdhouse. Next bird that we commonly have in our yards that's very attractive is a northern cardinal. Same thing with it. The northern cardinal builds a cup-type nest, and again, they would never utilize a birdhouse because they're going to nest in shrubbery, and they build a nest out of natural materials. Next common bird we have is a northern mockingbird. I won't show you all but he's a cup nester also. Now these birds will all nest they're common around rural area, or not rural, but habitat area or human habitat areas in your yards and shrubs and stuff. So all those birds it's common to your yard, but they will not nest in birdhouses. There's three species of birds that will build a nest of their own, but you may be able to attract them to a nesting platform, such as this is a nesting platform. And they will build in there and actually construct their nest in there on that platform. So the birds that we have in this area that you will see in your yard that would use that type of a bird, type of a nesting area is the eastern phoebe, which is a flycatcher, and the very common American robin, and the barn swallow. So those three birds, they won't use a birdhouse inside with a hole in it. They'll if you have a shelf or something up there, they will possibly nest. You can attract them to your yard and they'll nest in that. And most of the birds that we have that you see in your backyard are cup nesters. The very few birds actually go and will use the birdhouse. The next thing is ground nesters. We have a few ground nesters, and this is the eastern towhee, a cup-type nest that he built on the ground. Next one is you often see this one around ball fields. This is a killdeer. It looks like a shorebird, but it's usually far away from water, and it will actually just scrape the depression in the ground. So they'll just scrape a little depression in the ground and lay their eggs in the depression in the ground. They're usually out in the open, and oftentimes if you go to if your grandkids play ball or whatever, you'll often see them out in the parking lots around ball fields or open areas like that. And if you get too close to their nest, they run away from the nest with like they got a broken wing, trying to attract you away from their nest. But they typically just nest out in the open. And then another one that should be common to everybody. Everybody know what this bird is?
Brown thrasher.
And what is a brown thrasher? Why is that important to us? It's a Georgia State bird, brown thrasher. They will nest on the ground occasionally also, anywhere on the ground, or they'll sometimes nest up to 14 feet up, but it's still going to be in a brushy, shrubby area. And then there's the birds that will actually excavate a hole in the ground. This is the belted kingfisher. They'll use riverbanks or cuts in roadways or railroads and actually excavate a hole in the ground, and it's typically going to be close to water because that's where how they feed is they catch fish. Yeah. There's that Lilburn Greenway. There's belted kingfishers along there. There's a stream bed there and a railroad track, and they're nesting in there somewhere. And the road's Jordan Park over in Lawrenceville. There's a belted kingfishers around there all the time too. But so they're around a lot, but you got to be near water. Okay, so that's the birds that we have that cup nesters, ground nesters, and underground, and then we get to the cavity nesters. These are the birds that are going to actually nest in a birdhouse. The primary bird the bird that most people try to attract to the yard when they want to put up a birdhouse is the eastern bluebird. So the box dimensions to fit an eastern bluebird will also fit the other common birds that we have, but this is the bird that most people are trying to attract to the yard when they put a birdhouse out. Okay, there's when you take the cavity nesters, before the advent of birdhouses, they nested in rotten out. The bluebirds would nest in a fence post, a rotten fence post that had a hole in the fence post where it would rotted away. That's where they nested. They like to nest typically about 5 feet off the ground in an open area out in the field. Well, when the wooden fence posts went away and went to other types of fence posts, that took away a lot of their habitat. So there was a decline. So the cavity nesters nest in that sort of thing. Well, there's primary cavity nesters and secondary cavity nesters. The primary cavity nesters are woodpeckers. They'll actually go to a tree, typically a tree that's dead or decaying, and they'll bore a hole in the tree and actually make a nest inside the tree. Well, they will use that 1 year, and then they typically will make another one. Well, that empty woodpecker nest is a cavity, and then you'll get the secondary cavity nesters that come along and utilize that woodpecker hole for their nest in succeeding years. So a lot of the cavity nesters don't have the capability of excavating the hole. They have to depend on either woodpecker, old woodpecker hole, or some rotten, rotted out part of a tree or something. The eastern bluebird populations there was a severe decline of the bluebird populations back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Due to loss of habitat, like I say, the fence posts, they started, making fences out of other materials and fences just being taken away. But then there was a problem. One of the other cause of the problem was the import of these guys, the English house sparrow. Somebody up in New York apparently decided they'd make a nice pet, and they got loose and started taking over. Well, they were competing for the same nesting spots as the bluebird, and they're much more aggressive, and the bluebird sort of got shoved aside. And the other culprit is this European starling. They were imported, and somebody thought they would make good pets or whatever, and then they got loose, and both these species have taken over the whole country. And they're very aggressive, and they'll kick other birds, make spots for other birds.
How big do they get the bird?
Well, the European starling is a bigger bird. It's probably robin size. It requires, and the way you can restrict the European starling needs a hole bigger than 1 9/16 to be able to get in. So that's why you see bluebird boxes are 1.5 inch hole diameter. So if you keep the hole diameter at 1.5 inches or less, you'll restrict the European starling from getting in there. The English house sparrow can get in a hole, I think it's 1 1/4 or 1 3/8, so a house sparrow can get in. So if you see them building a nest, and they just make a terribly messy nest, you'll see stuff all over the ground. And if you go to Lowe's and Home Depot, you'll see them up in the rafters up in there. They get the bird seed that's fallen on the ground, but they just make a real raggedy, ugly-looking nest, and they're just real messy birds. So neither one of those species are birds you want to attract to your yard. And then the North American Bluebird Society and thousands of people who started building bluebird boxes and making bluebird trails have really brought the bluebird back. So you really see they're very common birds now, where they once were very, they were threatened of becoming extinct almost. Okay, and then I say there's when you construct a birdhouse, there's dimensions that are appropriate for different species. And this is a birdhouse book by Donald and Lillian Stokes, and it's just nothing but about building birdhouses. So every species of birds has a desired dimension. Well, you think, well, they used to nest in cavities in trees or woodpecker holes. Well, if they don't have any other choice, they'll nest wherever they can find a spot. But if they got a birdhouse that's sized properly for them, they will use that over a hole, because a box that's sized properly for them is going to make them much safer and less apt to be have predators come in and steal their eggs, or where if they're just in a hole in a tree, raccoons, anything else can get in there and destroy their nests. So the other birds that we have that will also use a bluebird box is the Carolina chickadee, which is a very nice bird to have around. Now, a lot of the birds that we see here, when you try to attract birds, it's either because of their bright coloring or their song. Well, these birds are one or the other. Some of them have both. Like we had the goldfinch is a real bright yellow. He has a nice song to listen to. The cardinal is a nice song, bright bird. The brown thrasher is a mimic, and he just sings all sorts of stuff like the mockingbird. The chickadee is a very sociable bird, nice bird to have around, and they're just fun to watch. So Carolina chickadee is one that will use a box that's sized the same as a bluebird. Next one is the tufted titmouse, is another nice bird to have around. He has a nice whistle call.
Dan, you were talking about attracting them. Are you attracting them mainly by putting out feeders with
Yes.
type of food or something?
Well, yes. Well, I'm going to get that, but for a proper, successful attracting birds to your neighbor, for your yard, you need to provide water, food, and shelter. And if you provide that, it's like with the guy that built that movie, whether he built the ball field, so you build it and they will come. Well, if you provide what the birds want, they'll come. Here's your culprit, Ricky, the Carolina wren. Now, this is not a very big bird. He's small, but if like I say, I've been down working in my shop, when in the summertime I'll have the doors open, the windows open, and I've seen movement out of the corner of the eye, and here's a Carolina wren building a nest up there inside my shop over the threshold. Yeah.
Leave your garage door open.
Oh yeah. Well, if you leave your shoes out on the front porch, you might come back and find a Carolina wren nest in your shoes. And and the Carolina wren is a very sociable bird. He has just a fantastic, just to listen to them sing. And then the other one, his cousin, is the house wren. He's not quite so friendly. He's a bit more aggressive than the Carolina wren. The house wren will actually go in and destroy other birds' nests, and they will try to take over whatever nesting places they can find. They try to take them over, and so they're not nearly as nice to have around, but they do have a nice call. They'll sit out there and sing and entertain you. And then the last one that we have that's very common in our area is the house finch. Now this is a bird that was imported from Europe, but it's not quite as a nuisance as what the European starling and the English house sparrow is. But this bird will nest in your bird boxes. It nesting. I had my DirecTV satellite dish, the bracket underneath there. Well, they build a nest on that bracket underneath there. But they will build a nest, construct a nest, and they will also use a birdhouse. Okay, here's some. I'm just going to show you some pictures of bird boxes that I've constructed. And we'll just go on to what makes a good birdhouse. Okay, this is a birdhouse that I designed. I looked at pictures and I came up with a chart like this for the dimensions. And then these dimensions there shows you what the entrance hole size is, how far the hole should be up above the floor, the overall floor dimensions, and the height of the box. In the ones that I went through that shows that there was common in an area, they will all nest in basically the same size box. So this is something I designed myself when we first moved down here back in the late 80s. I hung that up from and bluebird boxes are supposed to be 5 feet off the ground in an open area. Well, I hung it on a branch in a tree, and the first year I put that up, we had bluebirds in it, and they had four broods in 1 year. They nested in that box every year. That's their favorite box. Until we had 1 year, we had a snake get into it, and that nesting failed, and they didn't come back that year. And then the following year, they tried it again, and another snake got into it. Well, then I took it out of the tree. But for some reason, that's the box they want to go to. Well, it's got a lot of disadvantages to it, or not a lot, but it's got disadvantages. The box should be the right dimensions for the bird. The height above the floor is, well, a bird builds its nest. After it builds its nest, and a bluebird nest will be about that deep. You don't want the hole down here where when the birds are in the nest, if the hole is too close, they might be able to get out of the hole before they're really ready to get out of the hole. So the hole's got to be up higher. And then if you don't get the box cleaned out, they'll build more on top of that, eventually fill it up. So you need to have room in there for them to build the nest. And also the size of the floor needs to be big enough for the number of birds they typically have, and a bluebird typically has 4 or 5 eggs. It needs to be big enough to house those while they're growing up, and they're going to get full-size birds before they ever come out of the box. That's why some people say, well, I saw a baby bird out of my feeder. Well, the baby bird is going to look like it's going to be bigger than the parent because it's all downy feathers. So a bird has to be full-size in order to be able to fly. It can't fly unless everything is developed. So the bird comes out of the nest, it's going to be full-size. So you're going to have 4 or 5 of these birds in this box, along with the parents coming in. So it's got to be big enough to house the bird. Like something like this, there's no way anything could fit in there. Maybe a house wren could get in there, but it's certainly not big enough to raise a family in it. And then you don't want it to be too big because it's going to take them too much work to fill it up and make the nest. So it needs to be sized properly for the size of the bird that's going to use it. The materials the ideal materials is about 3/4 inch thick wood. This is a very poor material for a birdhouse. You want it to be about 3/4 inch thick wood for insulation, both heating in the winter, because cooling in the summertime, so it doesn't get overheated. In the wintertime, they will use that as a nesting box or a roosting box in the wintertime. So the thickness of the wood provides insulation in the wintertime then for roosting in the winter. Proper ventilation. There should be ventilation up around the roof somewhere, and there's a little bit of a gap right there to ventilate it, to let the hot air come out. in the summertime. And then they also need to have drainage holes in the bottom, so if water does get in the entrance hole, it has a place to get out. You need to have capability of inspecting and cleaning. You certainly have to have capability of cleaning the box. But in the case of a bluebird, bluebirds will nest 3, the book says 2 and 3, and I've had them nest 4 times in 1 year. You need to monitor keep track of what they're doing. As soon as the birds are fledged, you need to clean that box out, because they'll build on top of it. Well, if they keep building on top of it, if the nest material gets too close to the hole, it's going to make it easier for a predator like a squirrel or raccoon or some other bird to get in there and either get the eggs or the chicks out.
Don't they start to fly inside the birdhouse?
Oh yeah, they'll start flopping around in there.
Yeah. Some of the space in
Yeah.
between, so they could actually fly
Yeah.
too.
So if it's if the nesting material gets up too close to the hole, they're in there, they're getting really active before they come out. They could actually fall out of the hole before they're ready to come out. So you need to have a way to monitor it when they're first building the nest. And it's fun to go open the lid up and look at it and see what's going on there. They got eggs, and you can see each day there'll be another egg put in there. And then when the babies hatch, you can go see and watch them grow a bit. You don't want to open up too frequently where you're annoying them. But it's a good idea to monitor it. You certainly want to know when the birds are fledged, so you can get out there and clean the box out. So, because as soon as they fledge, within a matter of days, the female's back building another nest for the next brood. So if you don't get it cleaned out, she'll build on top of the old nest, and then it'll get too full. So you need to.
That, Dan, if you've ever cleaned one out, there's all kinds of nasty critters in
Yeah,
that nest.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You want to clean it out each time, because it does get parasites build up in the nest, and over a season, the first brood might be good, the second brood might be good, the third brood might die because of parasites in the box. So this box has got that you can open it up for cleaning. The problem with this, though, is that if there's a nest of birds in there and they're flopping around, they might come out. So this box is poor in that it really doesn't have the capability for inspecting it. It has the capability for cleaning it.
I never saw the screen inside.
Well, and that's another thing. The birds are down in this area here. Well, the hole is that much farther up. The babies might have trouble getting out. Well, what that does, you can either put grooves across there, cut grooves in the wood, or put a screen on there. This gives them something that they can cling onto to help get out of the hole when they're ready to leave.
I've seen those on bed boxes. I didn't know they did in birdhouses.
I actually run it across my table saw.
Yeah, I've seen you just put, or a biscuit joiner. You just take a biscuit joiner and make grooves in there.
I appreciate you being an engineer and doing that difference.
But they aren't measured, they aren't exactly a quarter of an inch apart or whatever. Just wherever I happen to cut one.
Yeah, you put coating. And I've read that several times. I need to do that, but I've never actually done
If
it.
you ever opened a birdhouse and there was a wasp nest in there, you would really.
Yeah. Well, I got another picture. I'll show you that. I've got one of those. I've got one. In fact, I had 2.
That latch on the side, is that a latch or?
It's an L screw,
Okay.
angle screw. It's just screwed in there. Hardware store item. Yeah. It just keeps the door from coming open. You can put screws in the side, but then you got to have a screwdriver to open it up.
Yeah, and I did
This way, you don't need any
that.
tools for that.
And then when I go to clean it out, I have to take a screwdriver.
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
I do that.
And then the next thing is, for some reason, people seem to think birds have to have a perch to land on. Like I say, I didn't make any of these. I would never put a perch on a birdhouse that I'm making. The only thing that perch provides, a bird that nests in a cavity, a woodpecker doesn't have a perch on the front of the tree when he builds a nest. He doesn't put a perch out there. You watch a cavity nester, they fly into that hole quicker than you can see it. But when they land, they bring their feet up on the bottom of the hole, and they just go right inside the hole. They don't need a perch. The only thing that perch provides is a place for a predator to hang on to and harass the birds that's inside the box. Okay, an overhang. You want to have some sort of an overhang on the front of the box, so to help keep the sun from shining in the hole and help keep rain from getting in the hole. So you want to have a little bit of overhang on the front of the box over the hole.
One of the small pinhole cameras and so forth. So
Yes.
actually
Yeah. Well, you can go down to the bird store and buy those specifically for that purpose.
Transmitters, or they just?
Yeah, it's a transmitter. You have a receiver in the house. and you put just out there the transmitter, and you have a receiver in your house with a television, and you can sit there and watch the birds inside your birdhouse. Okay, and then mounting the box. You have to have some way to hang the box up or mount it to a tree. This box, you can see it comes with a little packet. It's got some screws in it, and it's just got holes drilled in the back where you just put the holes, put screws and screw it into something on a tree or whatever on the back. So that's how you'd mount that box. And then of course this one's got eyelets for hanging it. I've just got some eye hooks up underneath the arbor. And again, it's got hooks, something to hang it up from, some way to mount it. And then the main thing is location. Like I say, if you have the proper environment and you build it, they'll come. So you can't attract that prothonotary warbler to your backyard here in Gwinnett County unless you live in a swamp somewhere. Because we have seen prothonotary warblers in Gwinnett County. Out at George Pierce Park, around the lake, and we saw prothonotary warblers out there.
Low swampy area.
Yeah, but you're not going to attract them. You can't attract a bird that doesn't like the habitat that you're living in. You know, he won't come there regardless of what kind of box you give him. It's got to be the habitat that the bird wants to be in.
You put solar in the box, or does the bird do all the work?
For the cavity nesters that we talked about so far, they put their own material in. A woodpecker box like Bob has built here for a woodpecker, you need to put shavings or something in the bottom of the box. And what by putting shavings in the bottom, and what this is just some turnings from Rob's shop. And you can see here's some of the wood that Rob had from his things there. But you just put that in there, and what that does, if you put it in the bottom of the box there, the woodpecker likes to excavate a hole. So they go in there and they take some wood shavings out, and if they gives them the feeling that they're excavating. So you put something, because they don't put nesting material in there. And I think they actually, when they're excavating a hole, they'll actually chip out stuff and fill the bottom of the cavity with some wood chips also. Yeah. Well, that's the problem with larger birds. You know, you have to have a bigger hole. And flying squirrels don't have to have a very big hole to get into. I've had flying squirrels get in the 1.5-inch hole, but I think they did chew a little bit of wood around it. And I'm going to show you things that why you can prevent that. And you see this one here has got some teeth marks on it where a squirrel has tried to get into it. Okay, so that's it. Now, so I got some pictures of some birdhouses that like I said, I didn't make any of these birdhouses. These are birdhouses that I've made myself. So everything else you want to put on the, you might as well go and put up there, because I think everything else is going to be on here for a while. So I say this is a design that I came up with myself. And here on the front you can see this is a metal plate. You can get those down at the Wild Bird store. Well, probably any bird store, but I'm partial to the Wild Birds Unlimited store down in Snellville. But you can get this metal ring, and it's a 1.5-inch hole, and you can just screw it onto the front of your birdhouse, and that'll prevent the squirrels from chewing on it, making the hole bigger so that they can get in there. But these are brass. You can make them out of flashing, anything at the and sometimes I've seen them just put an extra piece of wood on the front, and that serves as a predator guard also. It makes that hole deeper where a raccoon or whatever can't get their hand in there around the. Now the problem with this box is I screwed the top on. I've got screws up here. There's screws up there, so the two pieces are screwed together, and then I just got screws coming down into the box. So to open the box up, I've got to take screws out. So it's not something you can just go take the top off and inspect it. So it doesn't have the inspection capabilities, but I can remove the top with screws and clean it out. Okay, and here's the box with the roof taken off. You can see the roof is screwed together, and then I've got screw holes there that I take the top off. This is something that I was trying to find where I read this at, but see there's a little metal grate. I just made it's a hardware cloth, like 1/2-inch square hardware cloth, and I bent it over, made a little shelf to put in the bottom of the box, and it keeps the nesting material off the bottom. And I think it provides a little bit more protection against moisture. And then I've got the same thing over on the front of the box, so the lead, when they get ready to leave the box, they can have something to climb on to get out. So the box, this has been a very successful box. Gotta say, this is the box the bluebirds go to, but it's the one I'm trying to get them to not use because I can't open it up to clean for inspection and cleaning. So my next iteration, was this box. This is the box, I don't know if you remember this from last year. This is the box I had in the contest last year. It's the same basic shape, but what I did is I made, the frame of the box is all screwed together, but the roof piece here and the side piece here are not screwed down. I've just got these L screws here with slots cut in the roof. I can just turn those L screws and I can lift the roof off. The roof, up here I've got a rabbit up here, and the way I put the rabbit in there, the water can't run in and get inside the box. So I can just line these up with the slots, and I can lift the side off for inspecting. And then down here, you can see here, over here we got screws. Well, over here is dowels. Well, those dowels go through there and the side has got a notch cut on the side like that. And you just take and fit it in and slide it down. So you can take the whole thing apart. Well, I have to have any tools. Because some of the boxes I got, had a Phillips screwdriver, some had a flathead screwdriver, and need a pair of pliers. So with this way, I don't need any tools at all. I can just go out there and I can look at it and open it up. So there's a frontal view of the same one, and I want to talk about this post later on. But this is a post that you can get from Wild Birds Unlimited. Birdhouses. Some birds are finicky of where you put the birdhouse. So if you put the birdhouse up somewhere and the birds aren't using it, you just unscrew it and you move it someplace else. So it's very easy to relocate it. And I've got a picture on the back there and another picture to show you how you mount the birdhouse onto the pole. But that's very convenient. This is the inside of the box. This was last year. This box was taken over by a house wren. He stuffed that box clear full of twigs, and I'll show you. He's got some here. That's what the house wrens do. The male will come in, and he'll just stuff the box. He'll find 3 or 4 birdhouses. He'll just stuff them full of twigs to keep other birds from nesting in there. Well, then he tries to attract a mate. Well, when the mate comes up, she goes around and picks out the house that she wants. She tears all the stuff out that he put in, and then she builds the nest the way she wants it. Well, last year, this house wren, he filled that box full of twigs, and he sat on top of that box every day out there just singing and singing and singing, and he never did attract a mate. So I know that the box is cleaned out because all the twigs go. Well, this looks like a chickadee or a titmouse has started to build a nest in there this spring now. This with all moss and pine straw and stuff inside that box. Look, here's another style of box. Now this is a box that I copied from one that Wild Birds Unlimited has. So use the same sort of post, and this is a guard if you have problems with snakes or other things. Squirrels can't really climb the post, but I've had problems with snakes still being get up there. So you can get a guard like that to put on to keep predators away. And then that's a copy of a box that I got from Wild Birds Unlimited. Here's a closer up view of it. It's got the guard put on the front. The side opens up, and I just the pin up here is a pop rivet. I just drill a hole down through the roof so I don't have to have any tools to open it up. So here's the inside of the box. And now this one's got a different kind of thing. This has got plexiglass on the side, and it's got a little shelf here, and it's got a screw in there like this. It's got a screw that's got maybe about a 1/4-inch head, and there's about a 5/16 hole drilled in that plexiglass, so you can just loosen the screw up and slide the plexiglass and take it off for cleaning. But for inspecting, you can open it up, and with that plexiglass in there, the birds can't get out. And this shelf also serves as a predator guard. Well, it just makes it a little bit harder for some squirrel or raccoon or something to be able to reach in there and get their arm around that corner. The problem is that with you putting a screen on there, I don't know if it's going to make it harder for the fledglings to get out or not. This style of box, I don't think I've ever had bluebirds nesting in this style of box. And you see this one is real clean down here. Look at that right there. There's a wasp nest underneath that shelf. That's why that box is clean. The wasp nest is no longer there, it's gone. And I need to put some soap in there. I haven't done that yet. This is actually a Wild Birds Unlimited box. This isn't the one I duplicated. This is one that actually came from them. It's got some real nice features. It's got, there's the bracket on the back that when you buy the pole from them, you get this bracket that screws on the back of your box, and it's got a thumb screw here that you just undo the thumb screw and you can lift it off. You don't have to take the bracket off the box. You can just lift it off and take it down to the ground if you want to clean it or whatever. But the side of the box it's got an L screw up here. It's got a slot in the roof with an L screw. And then you can open it up, open the top of the box up and for inspection. But there's another L screw down here for the side. that you can open the side up. And there's a bluebird nest that they're building, they already started building this spring, because I cleaned that out last fall. One last thing I wanted to point out, the bluebirds like an open area to fly out into, but they also like to have some place they can perch and watch the box. So when the female is nesting, the male is always around there just guarding. And they like to sit up here in these branches guarding the front of their box. And then when they're in the feeding stage, both the parents are out gathering worms and insects and stuff. If one of the parents is in the box, the other one will come in with something in his beak and land up there, wait for the other parent to leave, and then they'll fly in. So they like to have some place to perch nearby. So if you're in a big open area out in a field, they like to have some place. They like an open area, but they still like to have something close by where they can perch on before. Then they'll often, even when there's not a parent, they'll fly to that perch before they fly down to go into the box. And like I said earlier, you build it and they'll come. You provide the shelter, the food, and the water, and they'll come. That's it. Hopefully I've interested you to make some real birdhouses instead of yard art.
This is a motor home. It has wheels, they don't turn. Anyway, I did this one as Winnebago, and it is separated in between, so you could have two sets of birds in there. We will find out what happens with it. And anyway, that's the first one. Winnebago, this is a Volkswagen. The reason is this color. I had a Volkswagen van like this that was pretty close to this, but it had a green tint to it. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but when I painted it, that's what I ended up with. I bought some paint, I was over in England, and it was supposed to be a dark blue with a cream color for the top. When we got over to the place to paint it, we had it all sanded, sprayed it with a primer, opened up the can, and it is like a real light blue like this with a green tint. And we were shocked when we painted it anyway. I loved it when it was done. Anyway, and this is divided in the center, so it could have two separate sets of birds in there. And it has the normal, peace symbols and look like the hippie van. And that's about it.
Number 5, Britta, is it me? Britta?
Well, yes, that is mine, and you may laugh now. The statement, nobody makes a birdhouse for sparrows, is obviously not true, because people kind of got drawn to what they know, right? Because you call it the English sparrow, for me it's just a sparrow, but seeing them here, I love those birds. And yes, the house is made in dimensions to fit a sparrow. So yeah, you might not vote for it then, I guess, but I do like them. It has a removable bottom, so you can clean it out. You cannot, what was that, monitor it, nevertheless.
That one's mine. It's the saw squawk table saw, and what I like about it is the slot where you usually change the angle of the blade is the hole that they would fly into. And the funny thing is, when I was building it and like gluing on the fence and stuff, you know how when you're working on the table saw, it's always in the back of your mind, stay away from the blade. I kind of had that thought a couple times when I was gluing on the fence and stuff. It's like, don't get near the blade, and it's like, oh, it's just a.
So the fence is not operational?
No, it was yesterday until I glued it on.
There's no motor in that?
No.
You didn't get hurt. Good.
And the cranks turn, so
Really?
yeah, you can turn.
No, the blade only went up and down with it.
Right. I thought about that briefly.
Okay, that one's mine. I was looking for candidates of something unusual to make, unusual way to make a birdhouse. Saw this on the internet and I thought, ooh, round birdhouse, how difficult could that be? It turned out to be a bigger challenge than I ever thought. The only hint that I had on the picture that I was looking at was the guy said the blade angle on cutting these was 9 degrees. So armed with that, I went ahead and did everything else. I just, whacked out some fence material here, built this thing at 9 degrees, and I got it done. Rolled it all up with a piece of tape, And then I thought the inside dimensions look a little bit big for a bluebird. So I called Dan and said, now that I got this thing, what do I do with it? So he said that was about the right dimensions for a woodpecker house. So I thought, yay verily, this is a woodpecker house. Then I built another one for a bluebird house. The picture that I saw had a metal roof on it. The guy used copper, and I figured with today's copper prices, I wasn't about to go to that expense. So what I did was I made, plus his, the structure that he used to do this with, he cut a circular piece of wood and then built this elaborate reinforcement to make the thing come up to a peak. What I chose to do instead was to come up with some pins, put them in the two corners here, so that the thing was removable for clean out and whatnot. You can see I just bent one of the pins here.
The other one stayed in there.
Yep. So at any rate, that's the method of clean out that I chose on this one. And I took some flashing that I had on hand and made this thing. I figured, well, how hard could that be to make a cone?
Pretty hard.
It's a lot harder than you would think. So I wound up using a scroll saw to cut inner and outer circles. Since I had an inside cut involved there, that was the only way I could cut that out. And then I pieced together the aluminum for this larger one. This one wound up being a little bit neater, but it's got all the proper characteristics of a bluebird house with great size hole there, got a little overhang over the front. The only thing I haven't done on this yet to complete it is come up with some vent holes at the top and the bottom. So I like the idea I had here when I put the thing together. I figured, well, this how difficult could this be? It was more difficult than I thought. It wound up taking about 3 times as long as what I had thought. So those are my candidates.
Look like the Tin Man's hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have your sawdust on the bottom or shavings.
Yeah, you can put the sawdust in there.
That's a squirrel house, it's not a woodpecker house.
Yeah.
They need lovely to do.
Okay, that's, well, it was made for sparrows, but I think you can use it for bluebirds, as the size is pretty much the same, yes. Again, removable bottom, it's cedar. The only treatment is mineral oil to make the grain pop, but the rest is natural, so that should be fine for them. And again, dimension-wise, it was really for the sparrow. And I loved the grain, and the wilder the better for me, so.
Does the mineral oil affect the birds?
No,
No.
you can eat mineral oil.
No, I meant whether or not they want to nest in it.
No, it's they might not like it if it's still completely soft and wet, but once it's soaked in and dried a little bit, they shouldn't bother.
And the inside is not treated, it's only the outside.
Mother
So,
Nature will take care of that anyway, it'll turn gray.
yeah, that's the idea.
That's fine. The wood is basswood, that's the only wood I have. And I finished it, and the wife says, it looks too plain, do something with it. So I put 2 windows on each side, one on each side. And then she says, where's the carving? I said, some on the side of the windows, shutters.
Yeah.
And that's it. You clean it, you take the bottom off. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to put the rest in.
Yeah.
One is mine. I try to go for a more traditional birdhouse. So I use kind of box making methods. So my joints are, let's see here. I'm just using the mitered, 45-degree mitered joints on the birdhouse. And to strengthen it, I use my spline cutting jig to make the splines in here, and I used walnut for the splines on here, and Purple Heart for the splines on the top. And the bottom, here, let's see, I just used a 3-point method to actually pivot the bottom. So 2 nails, one on each side, and a screw on the back, so I could actually open up the bottom and let that pivot out. Screw it, and then screws to clean out. So I probably do need a screwdriver when it's time for cleaning.
All right, the way we'll do this, first I want to give everybody a hand for bringing in.
We have some winners. Okay.
I'm like,
First place
why
in
am
the yard art is Steve. No surprise. No surprise. And second place goes to Rob. First place in the functional is Britta. Very good. And second place would be Alex. Congratulations.